Welcome. My name is Dr. John Wilson. I'm from Adelaide, South Australia. Sorry I can't be with you today. Alfred Russel Wallace died on the 7th of November 1913 at the great age of 90. And this year, 2013, we celebrate the centenary of his death. Wallace had a long and productive life devoted to science, always ready to champion the cause of the oppressed and trying to make the world a better place. He was never afraid to say what he felt, even though at times it was to his disadvantage. I've known the name of Alfred Russel Wallace for a long time, as my great-grandfather, Charles Algernon Wilson, was Wallace's cousin. Charles and Alfred Wallace often wrote to one another. My book, The Forgotten Naturalist, is the story of my travels in search of my distinguished ancestor. In Sarawak, Wallace not only collected a large number of natural history specimens, but he began to formulate his ideas on the origin of species. It was at the base of Mount Sanchubong that he wrote his famous law paper. He greatly admired the local Dayak people, and their simple way of life had a great influence on him. Wallace spent his last few years in the peaceful surroundings of his home, Old Orchard, in Broadstone in Dorset. The house has now been bulldozed down to make way for a new housing estate. His keenness and vitality kept him young right up to the end of his long life. Many scientists and old friends came to visit him as he grew older. One visitor reported that Wallace said to him, "Just think, all this wonderful beauty and diversity of nature results from the operation of a few simple laws." I'm, as you know, thoroughly convinced that behind and beyond all elementary processes there is a guiding and directive force, a divine power. Another different visitor was the young Ernest Wilson from Australia. He was visiting relatives and had just graduated in medicine in Australia. He was my great-uncle and the youngest son of Charles Wilson, Wallace's cousin. Although throughout his life Wallace shunned all public honours, towards the end they were showered upon him. He was the first recipient of the Linnean Society's Darwin-Wallace Gold Medal in 1908 to celebrate the renowned July meeting of 1858. He was awarded the Copley Medal from the Royal Society, and finally, the greatest of all, the Order of Merit in the Queen's birthday honours in 1908. Just before his 91st birthday, he began to get weaker and finally died after a week. The Reverend James Marchant, who wrote the first biography of Wallace, said that death came to him as a gentle deliverer and opened the door to a fuller life. He was buried in the little cemetery of Broadstone as he had wished, rather than Westminster Abbey. Apart from the family, there were only a very small number of people who attended. His wife, Annie, was not well and she could not attend. She died a year later and is buried with him. On top of the grave, there is a large fossilised tree trunk, standing 3 to 4 metres high. It is a strange sight indeed. In Westminster Abbey, there is a memorial medallion to Wallace, standing between Charles Darwin and Sir Isaac Newton. Perhaps the greatest example of all of the recent awareness of his great contribution to natural history is the planned life-size bronze statue in the British Natural History Museum. Now, 100 years later, it is a long overdue memorial to the co-discoverer of the theory of evolution Alfred Russel Wallace. Terima kasih banyak. Wassalam.